Have you ever wondered what goes into maintaining the world's largest excavators? It's Pat from North Oz Heavy, and in today's episode, we're going to be giving you that rare insight into what goes into maintaining the world's largest excavators. Let's get into it. All right, so there is a lot that goes into maintaining these excavators, and it's going to be a three-part series. Today, we are covering daily inspections, servicing, and planned maintenance, because these things all go hand in hand, right? And it's where it all starts. So if you hang around to the end, I'm going to give you some of the staggering amounts of oil, grease, fuel, and filters that go into maintaining these machines. And we are not talking about hundreds of litres, we are literally talking about tens of thousands. All right, it always starts with our fuel up inspection. So every day these things get pulled up for maybe an hour and a half to get fuel and have their inspections done. Why are these so important? Well, machines always carry faults. It's like a boat, right? There's always going to be faults, and you've got to identify whether it can carry that to the next shift, when you can get a bit of time to plan it in and go and get the parts, or it's going to be able to carry it to service. They would much rather you hold a machine down at service time to repair something that is going to potentially cause a breakdown, because breakdown is unwanted maintenance, right? And it's always a bit more of an unplanned event is a lot harder, right? So they would much rather you hold it down on service time than have it go down a couple of hours later in the shift for something that you've identified, right? So it's a perfect time to temp shoot our machine. Why? Because it is hot, it's work hot, right? Heat dissipates really quickly. And what are we temp shooting? We're going to be temp shooting our pins, cylinders, swing boxes, our swing brakes, alternators, batteries, rollers, we're motors and cooler packs, right? So before we even climb on the machine, red hot tips, always be looking for oil buildup. So generally dust will stick to it, and it's a really good idea to be looking for oil before you even climb up on the machine that's dripping off it, right? We're looking for excessive grease buildup, dry pins, pin caps, grease lines. Grease lines is a red hot tip. You do not want to get shamed by an operator, because operators, the number one thing they're looking out for, depending on the last operator, especially if it's a changeover, is grease lines, right? They do not want to be the one to blame for it. We're looking for clever spalts on our cylinders and conditions of our cylinders, right? Leaking seals or plugs, right? And what cylinders are really important to look at? Our bucket cylinders, especially if they are double benching, right? So a pro tip is always look up at your grid mesh. It's a great spot for catching bolts, especially on the Liebherrs. I've found at times PTO bolts, pump mount bolts, all that sort of stuff. It's a really red hot tip, that one. Now, track plates, retainers, and we're looking at our idlers and our tunnels. What are we looking for at our idlers? We're looking for heat and discoloration in the idlers, and then our tunnels, we're looking for excessive play. Now, you get enough excessive play in these idlers, or the idlers sticking out too far, they can complain about tramming or power issues, believe it or not. Once that track adjuster gets to the end of its stroke and you get a bit of slack in the track, I've had it where the operator's complaining about down on power, and it's to do with the track tension, right? Now, bearing. Slew bearing, we're looking for excessive grease buildup, we are looking for not enough grease, and we are looking at our bolt condition, right? It's hard to identify all of them, but if you're going around and, making an effort to have a look at them, great. Center joint leaks, another good one. Now into our engine base, and once we get up on the machine, always good to have a look at your fire suppression as well. If the machine has fire suppression, we're looking at mounts, intakes, turbo drains, exhaust leaks, belts. That's another one that can embarrass you, right? And we're looking at our tensioner conditions and discoloration in our tensioners, right? And then I do what's called the kick and wiggle. So I go around and grab termination points and grab harnesses and give them a yank and see if anything comes out. You'll be surprised the amount of times you'll identify a failure like that before it happens, right? So electrical cabinets, we are looking for mounts, especially if they're pulling batters. Another pro tip, right? Always go and check your cab mounts, especially if that machine is pulling batters. The amount of times that I've found broken bolts in a cab, one or two of them, especially if you've only got 4 of them in there, it's really important to be checking those, right? So in our pump bays, we're just looking for leaks, see if it'll carry, or you're going to have to address it the next day. We are looking for mounts, swing box fixing, so bolts that are broken. We're looking for oil condition. This is a good one. Go and speak to your serviceman and see if he's noticed anything unusual. If you've got to have a serviceman there, he's going to be checking the levels right. He's going to tell you it's using a heap of grease. Maybe not. It's only taken 1,000 litres of fuel. Then you might have an eco valve. I've seen that a few times where people are chasing why this engine won't start, and the serviceman's filled it up, and it's clicked off the fast fill straight away, and it's just an eco valve, right? So that one has caught a lot of people out. So why are these inspections so important? Well, this is what feeds the planners the information they need to then go and schedule it in, prioritize it for the next time that machine comes on service. So you have that opportunity when it comes on service and planned maintenance to rectify these faults, right? Now, like I said, this is going to be a 3-part series, and if you hang around to the end, I'm going to reveal what the next episode will be, and it's going to be a good one. So let's get to the next section, servicing and planned maintenance. Service day. It's expensive, especially when you're dealing with gear oil that can cost you $16 a litre. But we will get to that. I'll tell you all about that if you hang around to the end. All right, so service intervals. We've got 2, 4, 6 and 8 week services. Some sites do 500, 1,000, 2,000 and 4,000 hour services. Just depends on the site, but they're much the same, right? It's just what they like to call them. Some sites will do it on hours, and other sites will do it via weeks, right? Doesn't matter on the hours. So start off with, what are we going to do? Running checks. We're going to do our wash, oils, filters, mech, electrical and structural inspections, right? What are we looking for in our running checks? We're looking for pin movement, cab functions, cycle times, stalls, servos, contaminations, e-stops, ladder interlocks, service hatch interlocks. We're going to amp clamp our alternators and do single starter alternators, batteries as well too. Why do we do single starters? Because these machines have 2 starters, and you want to try and identify if one starter has failed, you want to change both out. Why do we do that? So that we don't wear it as a breakdown. Because if that starter is running on, if that engine is running on one starter, it's only a matter of time before that starter lets go, and generally it's as that machine is getting started up for starter shift, right? So amp clamping our alternators, we want to identify our alternators and replace them on service, and batteries as well too, really important. And we want to identify existing faults before the machine comes in. This is really important. The amount of times that a machine will come in with a fault before the start of the job, and it's not identified, and then they're running around like madmen at the end of the job to go, oh, well, did we introduce this, or was it coming in like this? You want to pick these things up so they can then plan, because then they can plan to hold it down for longer if need be. They would much rather hold that machine down for longer on a service period, send it back to work and get it as a breakdown. So really important. Pro tip, really important with our slew boxes. We suck them straight away while it's still hot, and our final drives. Why? Because you want to get the most oil out of it. When it's hot, the oil is obviously a lower viscosity and will run out of that slew box a lot better. Some places contribute premature failures to the slew boxes not being sucked out while the oil is hot. It's actually a OEM recommendation, and I like to, if the machine is not work hot and we're doing the oils, I'll spin that thing around if I can 5 to 10 times to try and heat that oil up, and then boom, drop them straight away. So filters, they're not just there to piss you off on a service, they are there as a diagnostic and preventative maintenance tool. The amount of times I see people carry on, and the number 2 filters to get handed over is high pressure screens and returns, right? Because they're big and awkward and you get covered in snot doing it. But it's a really good time to go and pull those screens, and a really good tip with your high pressure screens. Pull the filter out, obviously inspect it, sit it down somewhere, and then tip your oil out slowly, because obviously the heavy stuff goes to the bottom. You tip it out until you got about that much oil in it, and get your torch and shine it in there and have a look for the metal. You'll pick up brass and things like that is not picked up by contamination switches, right? We're doing our mech and electrical and structural inspections. Obviously, these are more in-depth inspections that you're not going to be able to do you're not going to have the time to do on a daily inspection, right? So removing covers on termination points. We're going to go through and clean and inspect connectors. And then we're just going to go mech check everything. So we're going to go over it because the machine is washed. Now, why do we wash the machine every time we service it? Number one, to remove the debris, and makes it a lot easier to work on and identify things. And it also stops contamination from building up, right? Inevitable that these machines are going to be leaking. It's just a thing that they do. Very rarely will you hop on a machine that doesn't have something that's leaking, right? So you want to try and stop that material from building up. Why? If you get a fire, you want to minimize the amount of contamination on that machine because that is a fuel source, right? So moving on to our planned work, right? So this is what we've identified with our inspections. And then site specific, right? It can be components like pumps, PTOs, swing boxes, hose kits, valve sets, things like that, right? So especially when they've been trending a component as well too through oil samples. Not really ever seen that. It just generally just runs till failure, or they'll suck and blow the component many times until it explodes. But that is part of it, right? Some sites do trend it and do watch the samples, and they try and change the components out before it becomes a failure, right? It's important to take into consideration the setup, right? Why? Because if you're doing attachment work and the boilies need to do bucket work, you need to plan for that, right? So it's really important. It's one thing that I notice all the time. You've got to get the boilies down there when you're setting it up, or at least give them a phone call and ask them where they're going to be working. These excavators are massive, and it's not just one work group on it. You haven't just got the service team. They're always going to be taking that opportunity, especially when they're working in hard rock, to be doing bucket repairs. It's nearly non-existent where an excavator pulls up and they're not doing some sort of bucket work to it or cracks, especially as these machines start to get some age on them, right? So you want to take into consideration what components you're going to have to change out, what interactions are going to be going on. It's really important, right? Now, the fun stuff. So how many litres of oil, fuel and grease, right? So a 996 4,000 hour service, 78 filters plus belts. We're talking 9,000 plus litres of fuel every 24 hours they're taking. Grease is upwards of 220 litres depending on the condition of all the injectors. And if someone's wound that pump up, they can potentially use a tank of grease a shift if they're just trying to carry it through, right? So that's a 600 litre tank on the 996s. Now, the gear oil that I was talking about that is $16 a litre that we were using at one site, I think it's called Syntho 460, right? $16 a litre. So a 1,000 litre pod was $16,000, right? Comparative, some of the other oils around that $4 to $5 a litre, but this stuff was apparently meant to extend the life of the slew boxes, but they used it on the PTOs and the final drives as well. So for example, both finals, each final takes 80 litres, each slew box takes 60 litres, and each PTO takes 160 litres. So you've got two of each, two PTOs, two final drives, and 4 slew boxes. So you do the math on that and work out how much that costs at $16 a litre. Staggering. Now the RH400, the big bertha, right? Hydraulic oil, 10,000 litres alone in the tank, and we have 3,000 litres in the system. So 13,000 litres total. Then we're going to the engine oil on those ones. It's QSK 60. Cummins, it is 260 litres in the sump. I think it's 260 to 280 litres, just depending. And then we have a ROS tank, which is 600 litres of engine oil alone on each. So we're not talking just one, we're talking two. So 1,200 litres in the ROS tanks together, and then another 500 plus litres between the engines. So it gets really expensive, and that's why it's important to make sure these things are not leaking. That's why inspections and servicing is really important, that you get it right, all right? And we're in our next episode, we're going to go over a fun one. It's something that I did for a lot of years, and it's called shutdowns, right? So some of you might have heard of this, or in Australia, we like to call it the shutties. So if you're still here, Thanks for tuning in. I really enjoyed making this one. Smash that like button. Drop me a comment with any questions or queries. I love getting back to you guys. I really enjoyed this one. If you want some merch, jump over to the HDSA store and check it out. See you on the next one. Cheers.